Xenoblade 3 is a game filled with mysteries, wonders, and excitement, but nothing is more so than Origin. The whole place is a complete enigma to us, with so little about its construction and purpose being known. Until now. This video will hopefully shed some light on what Origin actually is, how Origin works, and why it failed to initiate, as well as answering the one grotesque question that you didn't know you needed answering. Before we get into all of this though, I need to make a quick spoiler warning. Obviously, there will be Xenoblade 3 spoilers in this video, but in addition, I will also be spoiling some aspects from all of the other games, including Xenoblade X, so you have been warned. With that all out of the way, let's get right into the analysis of what Origin really is. Origin was initially created in two halves, one on the Xenoblade 1 Kevis side and the other on the Xenoblade 2 Agnian one. It was created out of an incredibly durable alloy known as Origin Metal in-game, and very little is known about it, but we can make some assumptions based on some of the properties it possesses. For instance, Origin Metal has the ability to resist the force of annihilation events, as shown when Nier uses the Annihilator Cannon. As we discussed in my Explaining the Black Fog video, annihilation events utilize the properties and concepts of antimatter, where opposing types of matter meet and, well, annihilate one another, completely destroying themselves. Annihilation events are therefore created when matter from both worlds intersect completely, a byproduct from the Klaus experiment splitting the world into two. Due to the theory and concept of how annihilation events are therefore created, it stands to reason that whatever Origin Metal is must not have been split by the Klaus experiment like the rest of the matter. Therefore, I think that Origin Metal may be a mixture of different materials, created by fusing together different metals from either world, likely parts of the World Tree and all rest, and the Mechonis from the Xenoblade 1 universe. The coming together or fusion of both worlds is a very prominent concept in this game, interlinking being the clear example, and considering Ouroboros' and Origin's design similarities, I believe that a similar process might have occurred, explaining how Origin Metal may have been forged. To clarify, think of the matter from the original world pre-Klaus experiment as being made up of neutral matter, whereas the matter from the Xenoblade 1 and 2 universes is made up of positive or negative matter respectively. By combining materials from each world, it in theory should be possible to revert the value of this matter back to a neutral one, thus providing a new material that is resistant to annihilation events. Origin Metal. You may therefore be wondering how both sides managed to get materials from the opposing worlds, and the answer to that is light, but we're going to talk about the rest of this in a little bit. So,
just have a little patience.
With all that being settled, now knowing roughly what Origin is made out of, what actually is it? Well, the simplest way I can think to explain it is that Origin is a supercomputer that stores the data of everything in the universe, 2 times over for both halves. It is, in effect, very similar to the Lifehold that we see in Xenoblade X. For those who haven't played X, and I'm sure there's a lot of you, the Lifehold was a device created by the humans that was designed to store the memories of 20 million plus people, as well as the genetic material of all living creatures on Earth. This system could then recreate people and animals from this data and allow the recolonization of the human race. Origin is basically the exact same thing, with the only difference being that it stored all of this data plus every aspect of their world and entire universe, making it much more powerful than the Lifehold. So how does Origin work? Well, let's first start by taking a look at what Origin was supposed to do in the first place. Initially, Origin would have absorbed and digitized every piece of data in both universes, respectively from either half. This information was converted into words of light and was then stored within Origin in the form of core crystals, and this process would continue onwards up until the point that both worlds intersected. Whilst everything would be destroyed and annihilated below, Origin would connect with its other half, finally making it whole. In the process, the force field which was the cause of the vortex before, would likely be activated, and in combination with the layer of thick armor on all sides, Origin would attempt to withstand the incoming force and damage from the worldwide annihilation event below. Simultaneously, Origin would create an omnistatic field around itself, which would be used to construct a safe environment for both worlds to be spawned into. This, in effect, is just a fancy way of saying that Origin can freeze time around the immediate area of itself. We can also see this in the intro for the game, where time becomes frozen around Noah. The Queens likely set this up beforehand so that their respective peoples wouldn't feel the pain and destruction of the two worlds colliding with one another, and is arguably the most humane way that they could have followed through with this plan. Although, I have no idea why Noah is so special in this scene and can still move around. It's also this function that would ultimately be used by Zed to freeze the worlds entirely, moments before they fully intersected, creating Ionios. Once a safe area had been designated around itself, however, Origin was supposed to use the data it had stored within from moments before and rebuild everything from scratch, effectively jump-starting both universes. Think of it like reloading an older save file in a video game. Everything you did still happened and existed, but you're just continuing from an earlier part in the story, allowing you to do things differently, but you haven't gone back in time. Now, it's unclear as to what this was supposed to have looked like. The ending suggests that they were supposed to recreate both universes separately, just like before, and then have them go on their merry ways. But this does come with a few questions. For instance, why wouldn't these new worlds just attempt to merge with one another again, like they were before? And how does this conclude the Klaus saga? Takahashi mentioned in an interview that whilst Xenoblade 3 is not the end of the Xenoblade series, it is the end of Klaus's story, and having both worlds still separate doesn't really conclude things in my eyes. That's why Origin might have initially been designed to rebuild both universes into a single one, where the inhabitants of both could then walk hand in hand towards the future together. To me, this option makes more sense, but admittedly, I can't explain the reason that both universes separated at the end. What I am confident of though, is we'll probably get the answer to that question in the DLC story, so a little bit of patience will go a long way here. Of course, what actually happened is that Zed took over and corrupted Origin in its entirety, and after capturing the Queen of Keves, Melia, used the memories or data that was stored within to create his Endless Now. As for the how, well, we kind of already explained. Origin is a device that can literally materialize and create matter from the data stored within, and that is all Zed needed. This is also how the raw materials could be transported from world to world, which I teased earlier. This would be done by breaking down matter on one end and transforming it into data in the form of light, and then reconstructing it on the other side from that data, like how teleportation works in a normal sci-fi setting. Therefore, with the power of Origin in Zed's control, he could easily warp Ionios into the perfect world for Mobius, creating people by the thousands, having them fight for 10 years, before feeding on their life energy, which in tandem sustains himself and the Endless Now. But why does Origin even have the power to do this? Well, pun absolutely intended, it's likely down to whatever is powering Origin. Now, we don't know exactly what's in the core, but from the abilities it possesses and hints in the art book, it seems quite likely that something relating to the conduit is responsible for all of this. Now, yes, the conduit did disappear at the end of Xenoblade 2, but based on what we know from the previous Xeno games and the fact that Numa received all of the Beanstalk's data from Klaus, I think it's possible that both worlds might have been able to construct a slave generator, powering Origin and explaining where it gets its mystical powers from. For those out of the loop, slave generators are a device used in Xenoblade 2 to power the artificers, drawing the conduit's power through the Trinity processor and supplying the machines with it. I'll go in depth in a future video explaining everything about the conduit though, so if you don't really understand what this means, then don't worry. For now, just understand that Origin has the power of the conduit inside itself. With that, all of Origin's abilities have been explained, right? Wrong. Origin actually has one more ability that is a little bit more hidden than all the rest. Origin can awaken Monados. When Origin was recording the data and memories of every living person, it created a sort of collective unconsciousness within itself, and this, in combination with the power of the conduit, granted it the ability to act as a medium to awaken Monados. This is ultimately how the Sword of the End was created, as it appears that any piece or shard of Origin can retain this property, and therefore awaken the power from within. This might also seem quite confusing, but just like the conduit, I will explain how all of this makes sense in a future video. So for now, simply think of Origin like Elvis, except instead of one personality, it's everyone's subconsciousness. On a final note, I have also seen the misconception that everything within Ionios happened in a pocket dimension that was created by Origin, but this is incorrect. As stated by Melia, everything that happened in Ionios is reality. Everything that happened in this game still actually occurred, but put simply, the clock was turned back and a new save was loaded. I also think it's for this reason that Tyon gave his herbal tea recipe to Uni in the epilogue, something that should be rather pointless. In theory, Origin may be still recording all of the data within Ionios, including this book, and at least Melia and Nia should still be aware of the other worlds, considering the reboot took them back to the moments that both worlds merged before. With this in mind, and the fact that Noah clearly has some leftover memories from Ionios, it is in theory possible for them to recreate the book from Origin's data, but this is only speculation. Additionally, all if not some people would have still survived the worlds merging, meaning that some people like Dromark, who I've mentioned a couple of times on the channel, should still be alive unless they got unlucky. Where's the evidence of this, you ask? Well, just think about it. To access Origin's memories, Zed required a key held only by the Queens, and he wouldn't have been able to recreate anyone without it. Therefore, at least Melia and Nia managed to survive up until the point that Ionios was frozen, and I'd be willing to bet there were many more who survived, although whether or not they would be unfrozen can be left up to debate. So what went wrong? Why did Origin fail to initiate and kick off the whole story of Xenoblade 3? Well, the answer is quite obviously Mobius, but the why might not be so clear. Origin was recording data of people's minds multiple times a second, meaning that the feeling of doubt and fear of change was constantly being uploaded into Origin, corrupting the AI that controlled it. Over time, this formed the being known as Zed, born from a combination of this desire driven from the consciousnesses stored within and the power driven from the slave generator. Knowing only this fear, Zed then took over Origin and used its power to create his Endless Now, a world which he thought was humanity's dream.
All humanity yearns for it, the Endless Now. That is why I'm here, you'll find. My existence alone, it is proof and evidence.
His existence alone was justification for this being what people really yearned for, which is why he became incapable of understanding the reason that anyone would want to free themselves from the cycle, especially after he explained that there really aren't any losers in the world that he had created. Lastly, we have one more question to answer in this video, and that question comes from Leon Chua. They asked, where does the party go to the toilet during the prison scene at the end of chapter 5? Not in those exact words, but you get the gist. He raises a good question though, as no toilet is visible within their cells, and put frankly, it looks spotless. Give the Agnian castle cleaners a raise, cause good job. Still, where do they go? Like Leon pointed out, couldn't they just escape when needing a bathroom break? Well, I think Mia was inadvertently teasing Uni and Senna about it during her hair dilemma, as the only possible answer could be that they used one another as the toilet. And on that note, it's time to end this video. I hope you have enjoyed and found this video insightful. If you have, it would mean the world to me if you would click that subscribe button and notification bell, as I'm aiming for 10,000 subs by the end of the year, and only you can help me achieve this goal. Without further ado, I appreciate you all for watching this video and hope to catch you in the next one. This is JB, signing off.